Good afternoon. I would like to thank Dean Minow, Jean Charn, Annette Duke, and all of my dad's former students at HLS for your kind words about my father. I would also like to thank everyone here, as well as everyone at Harvard Law School, for being here with my family and me on this extremely special day as we honor my dad. When thinking about what I would say today, I thought long and hard about what I could share that hasn't already been said about my dad. I could talk about what an amazing father he was, how I loved to learn math, science, and history with him, and teach him all the things I was learning, either in school or on my own. I could talk about how he was my hero, and how I will always look up to him and always admire his dedication and passion for helping and inspiring others. But I've been thinking a lot about what meaning, if any, I can find from my father's untimely death, and how I can live without him. And so I thought I would share with you my thoughts on this. As many of you know, my father was a devout Jew his entire life. Judaism and its core principles dictated his career path, his passion for fighting for social justice, and provided him with spiritual resolve when grappling with his mortality. Up until his death, my father and his iPad were inseparable. My dad loved his iPad, and it was the only material item, other than his endless stream of $5 cheap CVS sunglasses, that he really cared about. And one of the main reasons he loved that iPad so much was because it gave him immediate access to Jewish daily prayers, as well as weekly Torah portions wherever he was. For those of you who don't know, the Torah is the Jewish Bible and is commonly referred to as the Old Testament, and it's tradition for Jews to read a portion of that Torah every week on Shabbat or Saturday. So it wasn't a surprise to me that when I first looked at his iPad after he had died, the last page that he had been on was that week's Torah portion on Chabad.org. He also had a second tab open on his iPad to the Red Sox box score, another tradition he was devoted to. The Torah portion that my father was reading that week, as well as all the weekly portions that I read following his death this past summer, all talked about a key character in the Torah and how he was winding down his journey with the people of Israel, Bnei Israel. That man was Moshe, or Moses. For those of you who don't know, Moshe was the leader of the Israelite people in the Torah, and he was the leader, and he was said to be the most humble of the humble, the most modest of the modest. Moshe was an impassioned leader who led his people to the precipice of victory to the land of Israel, but was not able to go with them to the promised land. Sitting in Shul in the weeks after my father's death, and hearing and listening to these reflections about Moshe made me realize something perhaps profound, that my dad's life very much paralleled that of Moshe's. Not only was my dad the most humble person I have ever known, but he absolutely loved to help others. He was a capable leader to his students at Harvard, and a tenacious leader among with his comrades from City Life to a fierce anti-eviction, anti-foreclosure movement here in Boston. City Life, for those of you who don't know, is a grassroots organization in Jamaica Plain that promotes social justice through community activism. And I started volunteering at City Life with my dad back in 2008 at the beginning of the foreclosure crisis, when meetings were always crowded and oftentimes chaotic. However, my dad always managed to calm the flood of people there, as we would meet together with 10, 15, sometimes 20 clients per night. I loved being in those cubicles with my dad because it was there what I really learned what help looked like. He would start talking to a person or a family who was scared, who thought they were going to lose their home, and they had lost most of their confidence and pride, and just 5 minutes later they had a game plan and had regained their confidence. That was my father's gift. He had a genius legal insight. He knew how to fight for justice, and he shared his knowledge and his power with all his clients and students. Unlike Moshe, though, who because of the constant bickering among the Israelites many times felt like just giving up, my dad never lost his temper nor his resolve. He knew that he needed to be helping people, for he felt like this was his God-given duty. Even up until this past summer, when he was homebound, hospitalized, or confined to his bed, he was still helping people. He was consulting with people at HLab, Harvard Lee Lay Bureau, even up until the week before he died. He was that righteous. Going back to the Torah for a second, let me set the scene for you. The Israelites are standing on the eastern side of the Jordan River, looking across into the Promised Land. Moshe, however, is not with them. Moshe, their leader, is on Mount Nebo alone, overlooking both his people and that land. But he will never step foot in it. Moshe comes so close, but he can go no further. Moshe is said to be the holiest man who has ever walked the earth. He's the only person who has ever come panim al panim, face to face with God. But he will die on Mount Nebo and will no longer be able to lead his people as they continue their journey to the land of Israel. My dad, like Moshe, was a leader among many who died before getting to see the fruits of their labor realized. He was a leader in the anti-eviction and anti-foreclosure movements, but will not see the day when the laws he helped create fully protect families from ever being unjustly thrown out of their homes again. He was a leader of the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, challenging his students to utilize and stretch the law so that they too could be legal shields for those in need of help and advocacy. This fiercely competent army of lawyers, many of whom are here tonight, will do great things to make the world a better place, but unfortunately, he will not bear witness to their accomplishments. And above all else, David Abraham Grossman was the benevolent, wise, and immeasurably loved leader of his family. As my mother said in her eulogy for my father, he was the sun, and we, my mother, my sister, and I, were the planets that happily gravitated around him. He was our sage, our comic relief, our financial provider, the coach of almost every sports team I've ever played on, my doting tutor, our spiritual guide, our moral compass, and above all, the only person who would sit down with me every Sunday to watch football. My father was the gold standard among fathers and among men. He was simply an exceptional human being. He led my sister and me to the beginning of our adulthoods, but will not bear witness to who we will become or be present for, God willing, the future milestones of our lives: high school graduation, going off to college graduation, etc. But as I grapple with the loss of my father, I'm beginning to understand that his spirit, his ideas, his passion, and his love are still here. Perhaps he won't be able to march alongside us anymore with his goofy smile and those cheap sunglasses atop his head. But because my dad shared his knowledge, his love, and his power with all those he cared about, he lives on within all of us. We will carry him within our hearts and in our souls as we march toward a better tomorrow, to the promised land. Thank you.